Hey, Amara here with the Empathic Educator, and I just wanted to make a short video on the reasoning behind my name, the Empathic Educator, kind of explain what an empath is and kind of some of the ways that I've coped. I think that there are a lot of us teachers who are probably empaths, who is probably why we were drawn to this profession in the first place. But yeah, just to talk a little bit more about behind what it is. I've looked up the definition of an empath by Dr. Judith Orloff. She is a psychiatrist and professor with UCLA, who is also an empath herself and has done some research and a lot of writing on it. I suggest you look her up to learn a little bit more. But again, her name is Dr. Judith Orloff. And in the past, 2 years really, she's kind of gained a lot of notoriety in this field where she's going being interviewed on TV and on radio shows, when before then it almost seemed like a fringe kind of pseudoscience field. But according to her, an empath is basically when somebody feels and absorbs other people's emotions or sensitivities, and sometimes that person has a hard time differentiating between their emotions and others' emotions. When overwhelmed, it can result in panic attacks, depression, fatigue, and even binge things like addiction, alcohol, things like that, and drugs. And so, yeah, for me, I realized I was an empath probably back in 2016-ish, and I know it because I actually decided to stop using hormonal birth control, and I did that for my own personal reasons. But I noticed that I was just really emotional all the time. Like, I had various sensations in my body, in my mind. I was having headaches, and granted, some of those things might have been a result of my emotions not being somewhat, regulated by the birth control, but it was in a way where I felt like these emotions didn't come until I was around other people. So I have a few specific events that I remember that kind of triggered me trying to look into what I was experiencing. So, for example, I noticed that my boyfriend, at the time, well, he's still my boyfriend now, I noticed I started picking up on his emotions, or felt like he was feeling a certain way when we weren't together. So there was one time he was visiting his brother in Chicago, and I had this, what I would call almost a panic attack, where my chest got really, really tight. I felt like I started breathing really heavy. I remember I was in my kitchen. I had to stop and sit down for a second, and I was just feeling really overwhelmed with these really negative emotions. And I was like, "What the hell is this?" And so after I kind of got myself together, cried some tears or whatever, I texted him and I was like, "Hey, is everything okay? I'm feeling really weird." And then he was like, "No, I just got into a big fight with my brother, and apparently they were out somewhere in public and they had this big blow up." And so, yeah, that was just okay. So that was one instance. I had another instance where I felt similarly, where I was at home chilling or whatever, and I had that same tight feeling come over me, kind of almost wanted to hyperventilate, and I texted him "Hey, are you okay?" And he was like, "No, I'm taking a drive. I just feel like I need to, clear my mind or whatever." So those were two instances, and it's happened since then, where I'll be by myself doing my thing, and I pick up on something going on with him, and he said it never happened to him before, and it did creep him out a little bit at first, but now he's used to it, and it's whatever to him. Another instance I had was where in my first school where I was teaching teaching special ed, and I was going down the hallway, and there was another teacher in the stairwell with her class lined up along the one side, and one student was in the corner of the stairwell, basically having the biggest tantrum of life. And basically, when I walked past her, I felt a wave of just that tight feeling again, where it hit the side of my body that I passed her at, and it was right here got tight, my chest got tight, my head started hurting, all of this stuff. And it made me realize that I took on her tantrum, all of those negative feelings she was feeling that was causing the tantrum were literally coming into my body as I walked past her. And so that was something else. And then I remember I went to a baby shower that year of a teacher that was having a baby, and the shower was great, it was fun, and lots of people there. But I remember after I think the second and a half hour, I was like, yeah, it's time for me to go, because I was feeling all of this ooh, kind of on my body, just it was kind of my aura, my system was just okay, this is enough, we gotta go. And I went home, And I literally got under the covers. It was still daylight when I got home. I turned off all the lights, closed the blind, turned on the TV as low as it could go that I could still hear it, and like zoned out for like the next 4 hours. And it was literally like my body was like, bro, we need to get away. We need to recharge. Like, this was a lot. And so basically, these are just examples I've given that kind of led me to kind of researching, like, feeling other people's feelings, feeling overwhelmed, in really like high energy places, feeling overstimulated. And that eventually led me to learning about what an empath was and is, and that I was one. I do want to preface this by saying that we all are empaths. We all have the ability to feel extreme empathy. I think empaths just kind of take it a step further where they kind of feel that in their body. But if you've ever had the experience of, going into a room and like the energy there is like really stale or really tight, or you could tell like somebody just had like a disagreement with somebody, like that's an example of what being an empath is. We just feel it more frequently and more often. And so I just remember feeling like I was just having these random sensations in my body all of the time. Like I would go as a sped teacher, I was doing a lot of push-in, and I would go in different teachers' classrooms, and all of a sudden I'm having these like what I would call flash headaches, where like in the middle of my head I'm having pain come through, and I would leave that classroom and it was gone. I would go in another classroom, I'm getting like tightness right here, and then and I would leave and that would be gone. I would go in another room and my shoulders are tensing, and I would leave and that would be gone. And so like I was literally just taking in all of like the energy of the room. And granted, I couldn't always pinpoint where that energy came from. I knew it came from the room and the people and their energy in that room. So how I coped. So I don't experience a lot of this now because I've gotten better at like kind of like fortifying what I would term like my energetic boundaries. But I did a lot of journaling, lots and lots of journaling, just about anything. I did a lot of like card pulling, kind of like things to kind of like help me get some grounding into like my life and personal life and what's going on. Two, lots and lots of sleep. Like that year I did SPED, that was like my last year in my teacher program. That year I just decided like no matter what was done or wasn't done, by 8:30 I was in bed asleep, meaning I was starting to get ready for bed by 7:30. And so it was just, I just felt like my body just needed sleep, 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 and sleep. Now I know now that it was due to kind of taking in everything and just kind of exhausted my body, but that was a way that I coped, was making sure I got at least 8 hours of sleep every night. Three, lots of baths. I think that year when I kind of discovered all of this, I think I took a bath like once a week, probably like every Sunday or every Saturday or Friday, somewhere on the weekend, where I had Epsom salts, I had candles, turned off the lights so it was non-stimulating to me, and literally just soaked for like an hour or two. Sometimes I had my journal in there, but just really allowing my body to like chill with nobody wanting or needing my attention. Another thing, four, was better eating. I felt like I just needed better foods in my body so my body could cope better. So I started doing more like green smoothies, adding supplements to my regimen, just making sure that things I were eating was kind of like clean energetically, which meant lots of green things. Or if I'm gonna eat meat, like pasture raised chicken and pasture raised cow. If I'm gonna eat beef, I don't eat a lot of beef, but pasture raised eggs, like all of those things to kind of increase the positive vibration of the foods that I was eating so that I could integrate that into my body. And then nature. Once a week, in addition to my baths, I had at the time lived, there was a river behind my apartment complex, a small river, it's like a stream really, that fed into a larger river. And every Sunday, I went out there, walked the path for like, I don't know, a good 20 minutes, and then I went, sometimes I would take a blanket out there and go as close to the river's edge as I could get, do some journaling, some like deep breathing, just whatever I could do to like quiet my mind, quiet my body, and kind of get ready. And now I do a lot of like energetic shielding, and you kind of might have seen it with like kind of the more spiritual circles where you're imagining like a bubble of light around you. Mine's a little bit more in depth than that and not so like, but I found that with these practices, especially with the shielding, I no longer absorb nearly as much as I did, and I'm able to kind of be a better and more available teacher, girlfriend, sister, lover, all of that, now that I've incorporated these things into my daily practices. So just wanted to explain a little bit about what an empath is and why I consider myself the empathic educator. And yeah, thanks for watching.